The year 2025 marked a seismic shift in the automotive world, one that would send shockwaves through every corner of the industry. For decades, car makers had relied on a finely tuned global network, factories in Asia, Europe, and the Americas working in harmony to deliver vehicles to consumers everywhere. But suddenly, the rules of the game were about to change. On March 26, President Trump announced a sweeping 25% tariff on all cars not made in the United States, capping months of escalating trade measures. The announcement was delivered with characteristic bravado, signaling a new era of economic nationalism and a dramatic break from decades of free trade policies. The goal was clear: protect American manufacturing by making imports more expensive and encouraging companies to build in the U.S. The administration argued that these tariffs would revive domestic jobs, strengthen local supply chains, and restore the country's industrial might. But the global auto industry, built on cross-border supply chains and just-in-time logistics, was rocked to its core. Automakers had spent years optimizing production, sourcing parts from dozens of countries to keep costs low and quality high. Now those carefully constructed networks were thrown into chaos. Stock markets plunged in response. Toyota, Nissan, and Hyundai all saw double-digit drops as investors scrambled to assess the fallout. Billions of dollars in market value evaporated in a matter of hours, and analysts warned of a prolonged period of uncertainty for the entire sector. Automakers scrambled to adapt as components and finished vehicles crossing borders were suddenly hit with heavy taxes. Executives convened emergency meetings, supply chain managers raced to reroute shipments, and legal teams pored over trade agreements for loopholes and solutions. Decades of building cars in Mexico or Canada for U.S. export were upended overnight, forcing a painful recalculation of business plans. Plants that once hummed with activity now faced closure or massive layoffs, as companies weighed the cost of moving production back to American soil. The administration's message was clear: adapt to the new America First landscape or face the consequences. For some, it was a rallying cry. For others, a warning shot that the old ways of doing business were gone for good. The stage was set for profound disruption. Automakers, workers, and consumers alike found themselves caught in the crossfire of a new trade war, uncertain of what the future would hold. As the dust settled, one thing was clear: the global auto industry would never be the same again. The tariffs created an environment so hostile that 5 major Asian automakers made the unprecedented decision to withdraw from the U.S. market. These weren't fringe brands, they were top sellers, deeply woven into the American automotive landscape. Heavy reliance on production outside the U.S., especially in Mexico, made their business models unsustainable under the new tariffs. Absorbing the cost or passing it to consumers was impossible. Profit margins vanished overnight. Their exit meant unwinding decades of investment and left American dealerships stranded. The American car market, once a vibrant tapestry of global competition, is now visibly shrinking. The exodus is a stark illustration of how quickly protectionist policies can reshape an entire industry. The withdrawal of 5 automakers triggered a brutal loss of 38,000 jobs in Detroit and surrounding communities. These weren't just assembly line jobs, but roles throughout the vast supply chain: parts suppliers, logistics, and service providers. When automakers left, orders for thousands of components simply stopped, forcing supplier plants to scale back or shut down. The promise that tariffs would protect American jobs proved tragically flawed. The interconnected industry meant everyone felt the pain. For many families, the loss of stable, well-paying jobs has been devastating, with few alternatives in a shrinking market. The economic devastation in Detroit is a sobering reminder that building walls can collapse your own house. For American families, the most direct pain is at the dealership. Car prices are soaring. A 25% tariff means imported vehicles can cost $10,000 more, pushing once affordable models out of reach. Even U.S.-assembled cars are pricier, as tariffs on imported parts drive up costs for all automakers. GM and Ford alone project billions in new expenses, passing those costs to consumers. With 5 fewer automakers, competition has shrunk and prices for remaining cars are rising fast. Many families are delaying purchases, opting for used cars or taking on bigger loans. The dream of owning a new reliable vehicle is slipping away for many Americans. Tariffs have become a hidden tax, making cars a luxury for more households. The tariffs have ignited a financial firestorm for automakers, both foreign and domestic. What began as a policy shift has quickly escalated into a crisis that's rippling through every corner of the global auto industry. Companies are scrambling to adapt, but the speed and scale of these changes have left even the most established players reeling. Asian companies still in the US are absorbing billions in new costs, slashing profits to avoid losing customers. Executives are forced to make tough decisions, cutting back on investments, freezing hiring, and even considering layoffs. The pressure to keep vehicles affordable for American buyers is immense, but the financial burden is growing heavier by the day. Stock values for Nissan, Toyota, Kia, and Hyundai have plummeted, eroding shareholder wealth and future investment. Investors are growing wary, and the uncertainty is making it harder for these companies to plan for the future. The ripple effects are being felt not just in boardrooms, but also on factory floors and in communities that depend on these jobs. American automakers aren't spared. Tariffs on parts from Mexico, Canada, and Asia are costing GM and Ford billions. These companies are now facing the same tough choices as their Asian rivals, with rising production costs threatening to push car prices even higher for consumers. The idea of a purely American car is a myth. All major automakers rely on global supply chains. From electronics to engines, parts cross borders multiple times before a car reaches the showroom. Disruptions anywhere in this chain can bring production to a halt, highlighting just how interconnected and vulnerable the industry has become. The entire industry is squeezed by rising costs and declining sales, threatening its financial health. Dealerships are seeing fewer customers, and unsold cars are piling up on lots. The uncertainty is forcing companies to rethink their strategies and brace for a prolonged period of instability. Both US and Asian companies are trapped in the same economic vice. No matter where they're based, automakers are struggling to navigate a landscape that's shifting beneath their feet, with no clear end in sight. The business model that built the modern auto industry is under siege. As the storm continues, the future of global car manufacturing hangs in the balance, with every company searching for a way to survive. The impact of tariffs has rippled far beyond car factories, disrupting tech, logistics, and agriculture. Tech giants like Foxconn and Quanta, with factories in Mexico, saw share prices drop as tariffs hit electronic supply chains. South Korean battery makers paused investments in Canada, threatening the US electric vehicle transition. Luxury goods weren't spared. Swiss watch imports plunged after a 39% tariff. FedEx warned of profit hits as tariff exemptions for small parcels ended, hurting e-commerce. China retaliated by halting US soybean purchases and banning Nvidia's AI chips, hitting American farmers and tech. The trade war is a blunt instrument, creating collateral damage across industries. In today's global economy, no sector is immune from the fallout. America's aggressive tariffs provoked swift retaliation from allies and rivals. Canada imposed 25% tariffs on $155 billion of US goods, targeting key industries. China halted US soybean purchases and banned Nvidia's AI chips, flexing its economic muscle. The US doubled tariffs on Indian goods, straining a growing partnership. As countries form new alliances and trade blocs, the US risks isolation in a fractured global system. Amidst the turmoil, some domestic investment is rising. GSK announced a $30 billion US expansion. But for most industries, the landscape is chaotic and unpredictable, with gains in one sector offset by losses in another. The events of 2025 have plunged the American auto industry into a period of deep uncertainty and rapid change. Once a symbol of American ingenuity and economic strength, the industry now faces challenges that threaten its very foundation. For 38,000 workers, the promise of a manufacturing boom has turned into a daily struggle to find new opportunities in a market that seems to shrink by the week. Many who once built the cars that drove America forward now find themselves searching for work, retraining for new careers, or waiting anxiously for the next chapter to begin. Car buyers, too, are feeling the impact. With fewer vehicles rolling off the assembly lines and supply chains disrupted, prices have soared. The dream of affordable mobility, a car in every driveway, now feels out of reach for many families, as choices dwindle and sticker shock becomes the new normal. Automakers are being forced to completely rethink how they source parts and build vehicles. The old ways of doing business no longer guarantee success. While companies are planning new investments and exploring innovative technologies, These changes will take years to bear fruit, and in the meantime, high prices and uncertainty are likely to persist. The industry stands at a crossroads, caught between the drive for global efficiency and the rising tide of economic nationalism. Decisions made now will shape not just the future of manufacturing, but the broader American economy for decades to come. The recent tariff turmoil has become a painful lesson in the complexity of the modern economy. Policies designed to protect American jobs can sometimes have unintended consequences, disrupting industries and communities in ways few anticipated. The future of American manufacturing depends on finding a delicate balance, protecting jobs at home while also embracing the realities of a global marketplace. Collaboration, innovation, and adaptability will be key to surviving and thriving in this new era. For now, workers and consumers alike are left to navigate the wreckage of a once booming industry, holding on to hope that recovery and renewal are still possible in the years ahead.